Welcome back to Bachman's Basement, the place where we crack open the dusty crates of Stephen King's mind, or the mind behind his mind. Down here, we don't just read stories, we let them breathe. We let them stalk us in the dark. We let them remind us what the world looks like when the lights are out. Tonight, we're not dealing with ghost or cosmic blackouts. This is a different kind of horror. The horror that happens when the world you live in is already broken, and the only thing left to fear is how far people will go in it to survive. Richard Bachman's The Running Man isn't a fairy tale or campfire story. It's a scream through clenched teeth, a story about hunger, desperation, and the machine that feeds on both. So lace up your shoes, take a deep breath, and whatever you do, don't stop running. I'm Chris Patton, and as always, I'm here with my good friend Chris Clawson. How you doing, buddy? What you been up to? What you been watching?
Doing good. I guess been watching the new Critical Role, The Mighty Nine. Really, really good show. Can't wait for the new episodes that come out every Wednesday. All caught up on that. The wife and I just went and saw the new Wicked movie, and that was actually surprisingly good. So I enjoyed that.
How was that as a theater experience? Did you have a bunch of people doing the fucking sing-along thing that they were doing at the first one?
Our audience, so get this. So, we went to the movies, we get into the 250 show, and there's a lot of people in there, more than our local theater usually gets for shows, but go figure, it's Thanksgiving week. A lot of people off. So we get in there and we're all settling in, and previews go through, and there's people there, but there's like these people behind us that have their feet kicked up, and like their feet stink, and it sucks. And it's just like they won't put their feet down. And I'm like looking over my shoulder at them, and they're just like, they don't care. And like partway, like an hour into the movie, there's another woman behind us with kids that are just being loud. And so my wife and I just decided to leave and go to the next showing. So we did that, and there were less people in the next showing, thankfully. But there were annoying teenagers in that one. We asked them to be quiet. They wouldn't. They wanted to be, sassy teenagers. So we had to be the adults in the room and ushered them out of the theater. And then we had a great experience after that.
God, man. See, like going to the movie theater seems brutal now. Like with the chicken jockey and people singing fucking Wicked, and I don't know.
If it was singing, I would have been fine with that. People singing along, I don't care about that. But it was just like kids just being loud, and parents that just would wrangle their kids in, or teenagers that are just being disrespectful. And honestly, it's, I feel like an old man now when I say, I'm like, where's the respect? Even when I was a teenager, I wasn't an asshole in the theater.
I think it's because you went to see, like, I don't know why kids go to see movies that they don't really want to go see. Like, I would rather go do something else. If I wasn't filling up to watching a movie, my first thought would not be, let's go to a movie theater. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, it felt like they were checked out. They were pulling their phones out. And so it was like, there was just a lot of things that was really annoying about it. And we were both Cassie and I were trying to just put up with it. But after a while, it's just like, hey, I'm here to watch the movie. I thought that's what you were here to do too,
Yeah, I'm an old grumpy man, so it has to be something I really love or really want to see to even get. Like, the last thing I saw in theater was we just talked about it recently. What was it? Oh, the Long Walk.
Yeah.
I just generally don't go to the theater because it's variant. Like, you get crazy different experiences every time I go, especially if it's like a Marvel movie or something. It's like, I don't know that this is necessarily how I want to consume it.
I can speak to, I go to a lot of movies, obviously, with my wife working at the theater. Then we get to go see the movies for free, which is awesome. And we go to a lot of movies, and I would say 90% of the time we don't have any problems. It was just back-to-back bad experiences, but hey, we found a way to make it good. And so I still believe in the theater experience. Obviously we go a lot more than the average people, just not having a cost involved, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's kind of getting a bad rap because now people just post stuff online, right? Like when it's getting crazy in the theater, people are like, "Well, I should record this, post it to Instagram." I think that stuff has always existed, right? Like you can always have a bad experience at the movies.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna obviously I'm complaining on our podcast about it, but for the most part, like I said, the movie experience for me has been excellent, and I will continue to go whether we're going for free or not. I love going to the movies, so
it's always one of those things. Like for me, when it's a musical, right? Like I think I saw Les Mis in theaters. You get that audience of high school kids that are like, we're in theater, so we should go to this movie, but they don't actually really want to be there. That's what it sounds like you ran into.
yeah, that's kind of how it felt. So, like, obviously, I'm not the hugest musical fan, but you know, I saw the first one in theater, and Cassie's really into it, so I was going with her, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. It was excellent sort of second act to the story that concludes it very nicely, and big production. And yeah, if you're a fan of musicals, this one is top tier. So
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the like one of the ones that's won the most Tonys in the past, like what, 30 or 40 years. I mean, it's a huge musical. I never got into it because fucking The Wizard of Oz already exists. I don't need a prequel.
right,
Uh,
this one is it overlaps the Wizard of Oz without like having the Wizard of Oz happening per se. So not to ruin anything for anyone, but it gives you some understanding of the Tin Man and the Straw, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion, and all of these characters. And then it has little like sort of imagery of what's happening with Dorothy and them, where it's like it's not telling that story again in any way, but it's letting you know that that's happening concurrently with what's happening in the story, in this Wicked for Good story.
right. Yeah, it's just not for me. But
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm glad that you guys, well, I'm glad that you eventually had an enjoyable experience. I've heard that those movies are really, really good, like really well done visually and like as far as the voices, the singers that they have doing the songs. I've heard it's really, really well done. If you're into Wicked, I'm not into Wicked, so
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I wasn't married to a musical fan, I may not have gone and seen it, but I'm glad that I did. So that's what I would.
and also when I said that about theater kids, don't get it wrong. I was a theater kid. I was in several musicals, Les Mis, Beauty and
Sure.
the Beast, Thoroughly Modern Millie, etc., etc. So I am not taking a shot at theater kids. I just know how you guys are, as a
Well,
former one of you.
well, I like going to see plays, and I like going to see musicals, you know, live productions. But I don't always go to the movies to see a musical. I guess that's not my genre, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean
it
that's what I was getting at is like, so if you go see one of those at your local theater, well, your local theater or the big theater in your town or whatever, people aren't gonna stand up and sing and act like assholes because they're at a theater. But when they're at a movie theater, they're like, no, whatever.
right.
I'll do whatever I want. You're like, that's still, you're supposed to be like, going to the movies used to be a big deal, right? Like when
Exactly.
movies first came out, you did the thing that you did when you went to a normal theater. You dressed up, you were polite, you listened. I know if you try that at one of Quentin Tarantino's theaters in LA, you will get kicked the fuck out. I have seen people get kicked out for talking too much. When I went to see, God, what was the movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, so when I went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at his theater, there was two people next to us that were talking, and someone complained they immediately got booted out. So I think those experiences still exist. It's just kind of hard to regulate, like you
For
can't
sure.
be over
I
top
mean,
of it
it's
24/7.
you can't control other people, and it's not like we were immediately complaining. We were like, hey, just sort of like let it go for a while. Then, hey, it became annoying. We tried to just sort of let the people know, hey, can you just kind of pipe it down a little bit? We're trying to watch the movie, and then they just didn't want to cooperate. So You have to take it to the next level if you want to enjoy your movie, I guess.
I think that's why I've loved these re-releases that they've been doing in theaters for limited dates. Like going to see those is a completely different experience because you're just getting most of the time you're like I would say like 80% of the theater is just true fans of that movie, right? So
Yeah.
like when I went to see Battle Royale, like no one was talking. They were all just excited to be seeing that movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a different experience. I'm glad that they're doing that because I think that's what will bring people back to the theater is doing unique experiences, right? Like making it more of a deal than it is to go see a movie because we're able to consume, most of these movies they come out, they're on streaming like, 3-4 weeks later now.
Right. That it's a different era for sure, with cinema. And I mean, for better or worse, at least there's a lot of entertainment coming out, I guess. And I hope the movie theater experience continues to survive and thrive. Just because I mean there's nothing quite like it to sit with a giant screen and that big sound system and have that experience with other people that are enjoying themselves as well. That I hope that doesn't go away.
Yeah, same here. I hope that they continue to find ways to do unique viewing experiences that will draw more people in, right? Like whether it's making food and beverages available or re-showing these classic films in a way that's like, this is a limited time experience. Make sure you see it. We might not do this for another 5-10 years. That
Right.
kind of stuff. I think that's a good way to get people who may not go see a movie very often, like me. I don't go to the theater very often at all. But if I've been going more recently because they're giving me a unique experience, like a movie that I may not have gotten to see in theaters because I hadn't even heard of it when I was the age it came out, kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, that I got to see the Exorcist 50th in theaters. Obviously, I wasn't even born when that came out, so that was amazing. I saw Christine 40th anniversary. That was amazing. Yeah, a bunch of these what are called Fathom events, where they're like the reissue movies coming back, and fantastic. I really love that they do that because that gives a chance for a new generation to experience that film in a theater.
And I hope they broaden it a little bit where it's not just limited to specific theaters because that seems to be kind of what is happening in a lot of ways. Like you'll go look, okay, Battle Royale's coming out. Luckily, the theater near me, it's inside this mall called Sugarloaf Mills. They always get these. So they seem like they always get these limited ones. So I don't have to drive like 2 hours to go see it because then that becomes like a harder, like, do I want to go see this movie I've already seen that badly? So hopefully they'll start expanding those a little bit. I know it's harder depending on what they're doing with it because so for the Quentin Tarantino ones, he was sending the original actual projector film.
Right. It's all about 35 millimeter or actually putting it on celluloid versus digital.
So that becomes a little harder, right? Like I get that. That can't be in every theater. You're going to have only a certain amount of prints of these left in existence. So that becomes a bit harder. But I think that's the unique experience that will get a casual, a fan that used to love the movies back into a theater, right? Like, because I feel like once you go once, you're like, oh, that was kind of fun, and then it makes you want to go again.
I suppose
experience.
It's a pastime of a lot of people, and I hope it continues to be. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, we went way off. Way off the ranch here. Things I've been watching. So this is a fun one. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you ever seen Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers?
I have not. I haven't even heard of it.
Okay. It is a 1988 B film. And I'm going to describe the plot for you here. It's a black comedy horror flick directed by Fred Olen Ray. And the plot is Private Detective Jack Chandler is trying to track down a teenager named Samantha. She's a runaway. And he runs into a cult of Egyptian chainsaw worshipping prostitutes led by a woman only known as the Stranger.
Wow. That's crazy. That's awesome, though.
The tagline of the movie is, they charred an arm and a leg. And the film begins with this awesome disclaimer. I had to write this down. If you listen to the Patton report before this, you've already heard this, so apologies. But the chainsaws used in the motion picture are real and they're dangerous. They are handled here by seasoned professionals. The makers of the motion picture advise strongly against anyone attempting to perform these stunts at home, especially if you are naked and about to engage in strenuous sex. Which I thought was incredible. And it's exactly what you think it is. I mean, it's like a chainsaw slasher flick, like a B slasher flick.
Awesome. So would you just discover that?
You know, I the last few weeks, the only thing I've had to talk about on this show is Law and Order. So I thought I should step up my game, dig through some B horror, find something interesting to talk about. That is one of the ones I was talking about. I think it was on Joe Bob Briggs recently, and I came across it on Facebook and was like, I should watch that. I've never seen it.
I like B horror. There was one, and I'm gonna draw a blank on the name now, but it was a good one where it's like the people are stopping by this they're on road trips and they're stopping by to get some gas, get some food, and then they're getting kidnapped and they're getting buried up to their neck behind this, out in the woods behind this place, and then they're getting pulled out of the ground after they're almost dead, and then turned into like ribs for the people that are buying,
like Chili's baby back ribs.
Yeah, it's my dad showed it to me years ago, and it's an awesome B horror movie. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I'll think of it for another time.
We'll come back. Or listeners out there, hit me at Christopher.r.patton on Instagram and let me know what this movie is. If
I remember the tagline in the movie was "Meat's meat, man's gotta eat."
Do you ever see that weird Randy Quaid movie called Parents?
It sounds familiar, but not off the top of my head. No.
It's a very creepy, interesting horror flick. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Anyone out there listening, check it out as well. But it's kind of a cannibalism type horror flick, but it stars Randy Quaid in a serious horror role, which is in itself, just saying that's kind of wild, right?
Right. He's more the comedy guy.
But yeah, it's an interesting flick. And outside of that, Law and Order. Been watching. I'm up season 4 of Law and Order. I will say Detective Briscoe is here now, and Detective Briscoe is so good and so funny. He's talking about this guy who is this is a funny one that I remember because I was like, I need to actually start talking about what's happening on the show, or it's not going to make any sense. So I'm watching this episode, and basically what happens is the dad, he's a Tony winning director and creator of musicals, and his daughter gets kidnapped. It turns out that he was molesting his daughter, and his wife had taken her to some kind of underground shelter that's like, so basically the mom kidnapped her. It's a big ordeal. They finally figure this out. They're going through the court proceedings, but anyways, Briscoe has this great line in the episode where he's like, the man's won more Tonys. The man's got more Tonys than South Italy.
Classic.
So, Briscoe's a classic. He has the best one-liners. I love Ice-T. Ice-T also has some good one-liners in Law and Order SVU, but I think Briscoe is top-tier Law and Order one-liners. And as far as things I've been playing, Kirby Dream Land, just beat it. Recorded gameplay of me and King DD's fight. Amazing game. And then I played a little bit of, I attempted to play a little bit of Red Dead Redemption, but Xbox Live is killing our game chats. So I did not play that much of it last night, but still continuing down the path of Arthur Morgan, sure. But yeah, it's still a wonderful game. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because I gushed over it on the last show we did.
For sure. Yeah, I guess I neglected to say I'm also replaying through Grand Theft Auto 5 in anticipation of Grand Theft Auto 6. Eventually that will come.
Yeah, we're all waiting. And yeah, you hit a glitch. We had to pull you from the depths of a glitch last night in Grand Theft Auto 5. the FIB underwater steal the nerve. Was it the nerve? Is it nerve gas? I can't remember exactly what it is.
It's supposedly it's a nerve agent, and we're saving the nation from. And then you find out later. I don't know. I'm sure everyone that cares has played this game more times than they could care to count. But you find out when you're driving around later on that it wasn't a nerve gas.
So for anyone out there playing the game, just a heads up if you run into this, and it will not let you start the mission after doing some deep dive research to help Chris out in this situation. Go to town, take a taxi, and then skip the ride to that location, and it will allow you to start the mission. Shout out to Reddit for having that information, because I've beaten that game 3 times and never ran into what you were talking about. But yeah, if anyone out there listening to this is also running into that, that's how you fix it.
Heck yeah. Well, that, the game, man, that game still holds up, and it's almost, 13 years old now, and it still feels fresh, playing it.
I mean, I find myself going back to Rockstar games more than any other game, because I feel like they're, I don't want to say timeless, because there's things that don't necessarily age well, but they're just great games. They always play well. They always do the thing that you want them to do.
There's a lot of care put into, the crafting of the game, from the story and the gameplay and just everything about it. There's a lot of details that just make it a joy, to play their games.
And just remember that when they delay it until the summer of 2026, I'm sure.
Or 2027, because
the beginning of this year.
Well, yeah, it's pushed out to the fall of next year, 2026 at this point. So we'll see if we get it, next October, November, whenever.
We got the pre-production of Red Dead 3 started before Grand Theft Auto 6 came out. So I have no idea what's going on. A lot of it's just going to be transitioning that online community, right, from Grand Theft Auto 5 to Grand Theft Auto 6, I think is the big worry, because they still make so much revenue off Grand Theft Auto 5 and the online stuff, which I never got into, but I know a lot of people love it and a lot of people play it.
I see the advertisements all the time for, the constant expansions and the add-ons to the online stuff. And yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't play GTA Online, but I see that keeps the game relevant and alive. Not that the story mode, wouldn't sell the game on its own, but for sure.
Yeah, it's weird with gaming now, right? Look, it's kind of hard. You don't see too many games that are just like, hey, here's a story, right? Play through this, give us $60.
Yeah, but man,
you need all the other aspects. I guess that's why I love Ninja Gaiden 4 so much. Granted, that was a Game Pass game, but I would have been willing to pay $60 for that, because you gave me a story. The game's really, really good, plays really, really well, and that's all I want, really. Like out of most games, give me a good single player experience, man. I know they still exist, but there's so many games that just tie so much crap to online now that
Well, I'll be honest. Yeah, I won't feel bad about paying whatever price tag they put on it. And I'm only going to play the story mode of GTA 6 when it comes out. I'm not going to do the online thing. So to me, I'm like, they give you a lot of value for the price that they ask. So hopefully it's not too high of a price, but it's definitely going to be worth the dollar amount that they ask for.
I mean, the thing is they've already gotten so much money out of me for Grand Theft Auto. I don't think it matters at this point. Every time they release a re-release of it, I'm like, oh, I should get that. I beat the original Grand Theft Auto 5 on Xbox 360 and then bought it for Xbox One. And then now I have the updated version on Xbox Series S. And these are personal preferences.
I'm playing it on Series X, but I don't think I bought the updated version. So I think I'm still playing the updated Xbox One version, because I bought that one and it carried over. But yeah.
So I bought it originally on disc both times. So then when I wanted to play it on the Xbox Series S, which is digital. So like I said, I've bought that game way too many times. I feel like this is turning into a Nintendo situation where I own, 45 copies of Super Mario Brothers 3 across multiple platforms.
I mean, if it's a good game and then they can, put a new coat of paint on it, people are probably going to buy it. So
yeah, I guess we should get into the part that people come here to listen to, which is, I'm assuming people come here to listen to that. Maybe they just come here to listen to us bullshit, but my guess is probably not. Talking about the book, The Running Man, and just going to go over what we're going to do here today. I'm going to kind of set the stage. We're going to go through the book first. We're going to talk about the new film. So the reason I'm doing it this way is I know some people have not seen it yet, and there will be spoilers. So when we get to that section, if you don't want to hear comparisons of the film and the movie, step away. So you'll
let
get
you know.
everything else. I'll give you a heads up before then, but that's why the show is kind of different than what we did with the monkey. The monkey, obviously, it came out like 6 months before we recorded that episode. So let's get this thing started. And at any point you need me to stop or you have something to say, make sure to interrupt me, Chris, as always. Yeah, let's setting the stage, A Dying America. The year is 2025, but not the one we're living in. Bachman's 2025 is a corporate-owned dystopia. Well, I mean, not the one we're living in, but kind of similar if you live in America. Infrastructure is broken, air is toxic, jobs barely exist, class lines have hardened into concrete walls, and entertainment has been weaponized to distract and pacify the masses. Television doesn't just air shows, it shows owns society. The violent games are the ultimate distraction. This is the world where desperation is the currency of the poor and entertainment feeds on human suffering. So right off there, and I love this is probably my favorite novella. I guess this is a novella, short Stephen King novel, $2 paperback, I guess.
Right.
It's my absolute favorite. And I think the biggest thing about this is the dystopian society that they set this book in is so great. What are your thoughts on just the overall setting of the book?
It definitely has a unique sort of world unto itself that is one that's recognizable. Like you can understand what happened to get the world to this place, and it's not too far removed from, from our own world. And we're certainly, in ways, our world is going in that direction, maybe not exactly. And, I know we're going to talk about it as we go along here, but, there's a lot of things, with the rise of AI that, kind of Stephen King certainly wasn't thinking about that when he was writing this book, but feels like we're headed in that way, where jobs are going to go away. It's another revolution, and we may end up in this situation in real life where you have people that are valuable to society, but their value is lost because, there's a machine that can do the job better. So that certainly that's my thought on it. I guess the world is not there yet, but we're certainly it is shining sort of a mirror on where we're headed.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about the setting itself is don't get too tied up in the year. If you've never read this before, think of it more like The Watchmen, where it could just be an alternate universe kind of situation. I think there's enough drawn from reality that you can like you were just saying, there's things that you could point out, and kind of what I alluded to when I started this, that do line up with the current society. And that's kind of the scary thing, right? That's what makes it a little unnerving. But yes, I agree with you on a lot of your points as far as that goes. I'm not as terrified of AI as other people, but that's that's because I use it all the time for work, and I know that it's still really dumb, really, really dumb. My worry about AI, and I've talked about this and linked to you kind of off the podcast, and this is not really relevant to The Running Man, is just the amount of resources it uses. And how bad that is for what's left of the environment that we have. I'm more fearful of like a Terminator 2 Judgment Day kind of situation where, world explodes and, doom and gloom. But
Yeah,
then like AI machines rising, I guess I'm not as scared of that as of just like a desolate world where we're out of resources. It's more like the Fallout universe kind of thing that I'm worried about, other than like a Terminator 2 or or The Running Man. as far as like a dystopian universe. But everyone has their own theories on that. I will say, look into power consumption of these AI server banks.
For sure.
It'll scare the shit out of you.
Yeah.
That being said, let's talk about our main character here, Ben Richards. Big Dick Ben Richards, a man built from pressure. Ben Richards is no Schwarzenegger action hero in this film. I do want to say that his character here, and nothing like the 1987 film. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I just do want to, if you've never read this book, giving you character description, he is a thin because he's underfed. He's bitter. He's angry. He's 28 years old, but he looks like 40 because he's poverty. He's, been living in poverty his entire life. He has carved lines into his face. He's been unemployed for years, labeled as unmarketable. His wife has resorted to prostitution to buy medicine for his daughter, who's dying of an illness brought on by polluted air, which we don't know at the beginning of this book, but heads up, that's coming down the line. Richards isn't running to get rich or famous. He's joining the Running Man, the game itself. He's running because he's out of choices. Everything about the character is kind of constructed around the idea of a concerned man trying to provide more for his family and knowing this is kind of his only way out because that's what the system has driven these poor people to do. Bachman's precision is brutal, miserable. People do desperate things because the system leaves them no other path.
Yeah. That is the world that's painted right away, in the novel, and it becomes very clear, when you're reading it, that it's a hopeless world if you're the lower class or even the middle class. There's really no middle class anymore. It's just the elites and everyone else.
Yeah, and it's some of the way that they talk about the elite versus the poverty in this book is very scary and depressing. This is not a fun read. I will say this is not a very fun read for sure.
Yeah, I mean there are elements of the story that are fun to read, but yeah, when you put yourself in the story, it's depressing for sure.
Yeah, and I think that anyone can relate to the Ben Richards character of, maybe you could have been really great at something and the resources weren't available to you, etc. Like depending on where you're from, what walk of life you're from. And we kind of learn this about Ben Richards throughout the story and some of the incredible things that he does and how smart he actually is, even though he comes off at times racist and undereducated, but the IQ is there. It's more about the situations that he grew up in that kind of made him the way he comes off as. You know what I mean?
For sure. That, and earlier on, before he even becomes the Running Man, when he's still in the intake portion of, in this beginning part of it, you see a lot of him using racism sort of as a means to make them think that he's less than he is. And so I think that they underestimate him, although they know he's intelligent. That's my thought on it, where he's being sexist and being racist in that beginning part. And that's not who he is, I don't think. At least that's not my interpretation. I think he's using that to sort of feed them,
A character.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like, so he's trying to create it. So I kind of like that ideology of it as well, is that he's actually kind of creating a character so that he will get casted to this show. So yeah, I guess let's talk about the big baddies here, which is the network itself. Killian is the head or the president of the network, which we'll get into him a bit later, but the network as a whole is actually the main protagonist or the main antagonist of the story. And the Running Man, the network, is practically, a character itself. It delivers propaganda under the guise of TV shows and games. And the games themselves are more than entertainment. They're a political tool used to keep the poor desperate and obedient. So, there's shows like there's a show where It's just a treadmill where they just have contestants run into the collapse and the last person left standing wins. There's a swimming contest where drowning is inevitable, right? So the last one to not drown wins. There's gunfight staged for ratings, but it's not like, a Wild West town, a ghost town or whatever. It's like they actually just give these people guns and like last person alive wins. It seems similar to the Long Walk, right? And then there's the Running Man, the Crown Jewel Show, which starts a nationwide manhunt with only one rule: survive 30 days while every citizen hunts you. And the show itself has professional hunters. So every citizen can hunt you. Professional hunters can hunt you. You get no training. There's no glamour. There's no Hollywood action vibe. Just run, hide, beg, starve, bleed. And above all, watch your back, because you don't know who's going to come after you, right? Who's going to kill you? It could be anyone. So that's kind of how that story starts. What do you think about some of these other games and where we kind of land the network?
The treadmill game, obviously that they touch on that in the film, which we'll talk about later, but that how it's described in the book, where only people that are cast for the treadmill program are people that are severely overweight and have breathing problems. And so it's like, it's meant to be, it's always meant to be a losing game for the participant. And it just makes it quote unquote fun for the viewer. And I mean, it's wild. It's a wild sort of like, I don't want to believe that that's like the future that we could end up in, but at the same time, humanity at its worst, I guess.
It's brutal. I mean, history is doomed to repeat itself, right? So you think about the gladiator days.
Sure.
It's not that far off.
No, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's violence as entertainment, but it's also like, yeah, I suppose, gladiators didn't necessarily want to do that. They were good. They were warriors that were getting either sold into that as slaves or what have you. So, I mean, it's sort of a similar thing, certainly possible for this to happen. And that is really what it comes down to, is like, as you're reading this, you're like, oh man, this could really happen,
Yeah. And with the uprise of reality TV from the first time that I read this until this time that I read through this, you're like, oh, it's actually more scary now than it was the first time I read it.
Right. Yeah. It's certainly, it continues to have an effect on the reader.
For sure.
All these years later.
So let's get into the game. The game itself begins. Richard applies because his daughter needs medicine, which we talked about. His wife is prostituting herself to help pay for this stuff. The process itself is very humiliating, bureaucratic, and dehumanizing. He's chosen not because he's a fit, but because he's angry. And Killian, the president of the network, or the producer, I guess, of these network shows, or of the Running Man. I don't know. There could be multiple producers. I don't remember if they exactly explain like what his position in the network is, but he's our bad guy, right? So
I think Killian is the producer, like the main producer of the network that runs all the shows. But obviously, like you were saying, the Crown Jewel show is the Running Man. It's the one that drives all the ratings.
So Killian channels his inner Vince McMahon here, and he's like, he's a villain. The audiences will root against him. And Richards is given a 12-hour head start, small amount of money, and a camera for a mandatory daily video submissions. I think he has to make 2 submissions a day to prove that he's alive.
Correct.
And he's not given any weapons. He has no allies, no identity. And the entire population, so everyone around him at any point in time, if they know who he is, they can kill him.
And they're encouraged to. There's cash. He has a bounty. Like every citizen in the nation is encouraged to, because they'll get money, and they're all desperate too. So
yeah, and in my notes, I actually wrote violence is crowdsourced, which I really made me giggle as I was writing it. And the viewers are collaborators.
Right. But and yes, I mean, it's it's like you think to yourself, like, would I turn somebody in who was participating in a show like this if this were reality? Well, as we will learn as we go along, the picture they paint of this character for the purpose of this show and this story is not who the real guy is. It's like they make him out to be a worse version of of who he is.
And it's funny enough, that is one of the things that holds over throughout the book, the 1987 film and the 2025 film, is that they definitely change what's being submitted, and how that person should be perceived. But yeah, we'll get into that. So we start with the chase. The pacing itself is relentless throughout this book. I mean, as it should be, right? Richards immediately disguises himself and he starts hiding in poor communities, and he narrowly escapes capture multiple times. Surveillance is all over the place. Not in the same extent as the 2025 movie, which we'll get into, but we do have facial recognition. There is talk of databases. There are public tip phone lines, which I think they could have probably did something a little different there, but 1980s versus now. But things like, fake facial recognition and stuff, that's kind of cool. He moves through the ghettos where children burn trash for warmth. Fences are electrified and buildings are collapsing all around him. Police enforce class lines with violence. So if you're poor, you cannot cross into this section of the city or you will get the absolute crap beat out of you. Richard Bachman, Stephen King pounds his point home with a hammer. The system is designed to crush the poor, keep them in this network show to entertain the rich.
I noticed that the cops in the story as you're reading along, the cops have the common phrase for all the low class people is maggot. They just say, "Get back, maggot."
Which is
so
terrible.
No respect for humanity, for sure.
And despite all the danger, Richard does find some allies. He finds people that are seeking the truth about the network. One of them is Bradley and his family. They shelter him, they feed him, and they reveal the truth about pollution and government lies. And this is where you start getting Richard, the gears start turning in him realizing that his daughter is poisoned by what a lot of people are going to be poisoned by, which is this toxic polluted air. And that's why his daughter's sick to begin with, is because of this. And this will come into play later on. But yeah, so Richard, he kind of throughout this, he learns that people aren't inherently evil and that the system is forcing them to act like this against each other. So, keep the poor fighting to some extent, but betrayal's kind of always right around the corner. And as he's realizing and making all this realization, the hunters, they kind of swarm in and they nearly kill him with gas. From this point forward, the novel becomes like very fast paced, and it's very much just Richard trying to survive with the injuries that he has. He's injured, he's starving, he's dehydrated, he's mentally strained. You can see he's slowly breaking down, and you can feel it as you're reading it. Like to me, I can like feel that in my chest, like what that would be like, and that's what
anxiety and
what you would want out of a book. If you can relate to the character like that, you're like, holy crap, what if that was me, right?
Hey. Yeah, that this I mean, that's the power of storytelling, and Stephen King really knows how to put you, the reader, in the in the front seat of the story.
And that kind of leads us to the end of the book. And if you haven't read the book and you don't want to hear the ending, I would recommend stepping away. We're also about to go through the major differences of the film. So once again, now would be the time to walk away and then check back out at the end so you can hear us talk about other stuff, I guess. But yeah, the airship in the end game. The story shifts when Richard hijacks an airliner. He confronts the network with recordings demanding the truth. The truth being like, admit that you're polluting the air and killing people. But then he comes to a breaking point. The network announces his wife and daughter have been murdered. So Richard snaps. It's no more running, no more bargaining, only worried about revenge, right? And so he pilots this plane, which he's basically just given this is the thing I think a lot of people will have a problem with in this book, is like him just immediately learning how to fly a plane just based off this 2 paragraphs of dialogue of a guy telling him how to do it. Anyways, he pilots this jet into a skyscraper housing the game's network. The building explodes. Killian, the hunters, the producers, all dead. Richard dies in the crash, burning alive with the final line, and he is still running, which is great. It's one of Stephen King's best ending lines. It's up there with the jaunt as far as an ending line goes. Really great. So there's no victory, no survival, only destruction. It's bleak, but it's wonderful. It's so great.
It's something like I know that there's an opening in in these Bachman books where Stephen King talks about the importance of being Bachman, is sort of a study on like why he came up with a pseudonym, and it allowed him to sort of say things in a way that, his alter ego, i.e. his real persona, Stephen King, really couldn't say, and like that, let out some of that deeper seated anger and distrust, for the government or for, just for society as a whole, some of his frustrations. And to do that, he felt safe to do that under the guise of Bachman, which I think is really cool. And I do kind of feel bad that was ruined, because it would have been really cool if there was still Richard Bachman writing, secretly Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman.
Yeah, and we need to do that story at some point where we talk about the bookstore employee who is the one that put the dots together and kind of exposed this.
Right.
But for all of the reasons that you just said for Stephen King, there was also just a limitation on how much of his work could be published at one time.
Right.
I don't know if there was legalities around that or what. So he almost did the Prince thing, right? Like where you're locked into a contract, you can only do this certain amount of releases, and then he created the pseudonym. So there's some other things that we need to deep dive in. I started collecting those notes for this show, but I was like, that could almost be a whole show in itself.
For sure. Well, I think when we eventually get to doing the novel, The Dark Half, that we could kind of go half and half, talk about how the Bachman name was found out in real life, but the novel, The Dark Half, was a reaction to the fallout of Bachman in real life being found out to be Stephen King. And then he came up with that novel that was written in the late 80s that fictionalizes, a writer who has a pseudonym that takes on a life of his own.
Yeah, and you guys stick around for that, because that one is not far out. We're doing that somewhere in the very near future. And I guess we'll do the Stephen King Bachman breakdown, contract situations, and the story of the bookstore worker that put the dots together. And that takes us to this. And once again, I'm going to let everyone know we're about to talk about the differences between the film. So if you want to step away for this, we appreciate you guys for listening, and tune in for the next episode if you don't come back. But so anyone out there that has seen the film and the book, now's the time. We're getting into the nitty gritty here, Chris. And,
yes.
Let me start out with, how did you like the movie?
I honestly really enjoyed it. I had one sense of what I was going to get from the trailers, and I thought it was going to be a lot more campy than it was. And I thought that they did a really good job of bringing the vision of this story to the movie screen. And I feel like it hit all the major points, and I like all the actors in the film and the parts they played. And it's a fast-paced action story, which really, maybe that's not exactly what the novel was trying to accomplish, but that works really well for cinema.
Yeah. It's somewhere in between the 1987 film and the book. It kind of lands, it's kind of straddling a line between both, because when you tag a movie with The Running Man, there's people there that want the Arnold Schwarzenegger 1988, 87, 88 film, right? They want that because they love that. And then there's people that love the book. So you're kind of like walking a tightrope on this one. And I think that they did a decent job. I don't, we've gotten some great Stephen King stuff lately. like the
Yeah.
monkey and the long walk. I don't know that this is up there with them for me. But I didn't hate it. I would just say kind of like, if
It
I'm being honest.
it I think that, for the purpose of the Ben Richards character, and the thing that you kind of drove home earlier when we were talking about this story is that Ben Richards is a desperate man. He's unemployed. He's starving to death. His wife, in the book, is resorting to prostitution. Obviously, they don't do that in the movie. And you have Glenn Powell, who's a very good-looking man who's very physically fit, and that works just fine, as a action hero sort of thing. But the basic premise of the story is still there. So, he's still desperate. He doesn't have money, and his daughter is sick, and, he's got to find a way to, provide for his family. So that part of the story remains intact, and a lot of the beats of the story are still there, which I really enjoyed Michael Cera's character in the movie. I think that might have been my favorite part.
I will say the tone's closer to the book than the 1987 the Arnold film. But Richard's backstory is definitely softened, like you were just talking about. Wife's not a prostitute. His daughter's illness is less graphic. He's more empathetic as a character. He's not like this desperate, kind of almost crazed individual. And the game structure is modernized in a way that I think makes sense, right? Like if this stuff was available, King probably would have wrote something more similar, but wrote this before we had live streams and drones and AI and all that stuff. So that made sense to put in the movie. You're setting it in 2025. It's 2025. Killian becomes like charismatic as a villain as opposed to being just like this quiet behind the scenes person. Which I don't know that I necessarily like as much. That is more of the 1987 thing.
I enjoyed that. The way that Josh Brolin brought that villain to life, where he's, it's all for the ratings, Ben. You're doing great. And just sort of egging him on, and letting him know when the camera's not on him that we don't believe any of this, but this is what gets the ratings, sort of thing. So it's still like, obviously it pisses the character of Ben Richards off, and that's, remains intact. And he's very angry throughout the story, which obviously you would be if you were in that situation. And so I thought that was fun to watch, the Glenn Powell play that sort of like almost unhinged sort of character.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things where when the book is one of your favorites, it becomes a little harder to like that, right? I guess.
Yeah, I get it. They didn't hit the mark in the sense of like, as a whole, it's no long walk. Let's put it that way. But it's still a very enjoyable action movie that I think personally, at least for me, is better than the Schwarzenegger film.
Oh, I don't know. That's tough. I need to rewatch the Arnold one. It's been years. I do say that I like that they kept the hunters more grounded. They do have more personality than the book, but they're not as crazy as the 1987 movie. Like the 1987 movie, they're basically full on professional wrestlers with gimmicks.
Right.
Like it's kind of its own thing. Bradley is tied into a broader resistance in the network. There's more of a group kind of thing going on, they basically add in like an organized rebellion, which doesn't exist in the book. I think that's kind of a good idea. And then the ending itself shifts completely. Richard still hijacks a plane, but he evacuates all the hostages first, which he does not do in the book. Spoiler alert. And Killian dies in the crash, but Richard survives injured and very sympathetic. So where the book ends on complete despair and bleakness and not knowing what's going to happen, because just because you took down the network building doesn't mean the network itself is going to collapse. The film leaves this like spark of hopefulness, which I think works better for a movie, but also makes me not like it.
Yeah, it's one of those like catch 22s where it's like, that Hollywood is too afraid to do something like put, a man crashing a plane into a building into a film, uh, just because of the world we live in post 9/11. So that it doesn't work as entertainment anymore. The way that when King wrote this story, that wasn't a reality of our world yet. But that, yeah, I get what you're saying, where it's like the ending of this book, the tone fits the story, which is that this story is not a happy one, and the ending should also kind of serve the story in that way, and that the movie does not serve the bleakness of this world. It tries to give some hope and say, people can change the world, and that's and it's certainly a good message.
It's a good message, but how like the way it's kind of shoehorned in there, I don't know that I necessarily love. Like the resistance stuff and how it's done in the film and the ending. It's like it's like they had an idea there, but it wasn't tied all together, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, just because we're doing them, the 1987 Arnold film, Schwarzenegger's version is completely different entirely. It's campy, it's satirical, it's full of spectacle, lots of one-liners. Richards is a framed soldier, muscular and heroic, more like the once again kind of completely opposite of Richards in the book. And Killian is a cartoonish TV showman, which they kind of took aspects of that for the 2025 movie. Once again, don't know that I'm the biggest fan of that. And then we talked about the Hunters, where it's like pro wrestling level of gimmicks. And it's not across the country. Like there's not like it's kind of just in this underground setup that they have for the Hunters to try to kill Arnold's character. So it's completely different. The ending is more aligned with the 2025 movie where Richard wins, gets the girl. He kills Killian with a good one-liner, good Arnold one-liner. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember it being pretty good. And yeah, the book and the 2025 film are more in tune with each other. I just don't know that this 2025, if I was going to watch a Running Man movie, I think I might go to the 1987 one just because it won't piss me off as much with the ending, just because it becomes its own thing. It's only related to the Running Man by name and just general idea, whereas this one kind of tries to do the book but doesn't really stick the landing for me.
That's fair. And that your opinion is certainly going to look similar on a lot of other people that watch this film. I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel the same way, or that really like the Schwarzenegger film better, just because it is sort of all about spectacle and about like an action hero like Schwarzenegger, just kicking ass and taking names.
And that kind of becomes the thing of like, we don't really get those action films anymore. Like those action films are just comic book movies now.
Right.
But something like this, that is clearly an action film, it leans more into the book, which is good. But then, like I said, I think it misses on some things. It's still a good movie. Definitely something to go watch. If you've never read The Running Man, you'll probably like this a hell of a lot more than me. So if you've listened to all this and you haven't read The Running Man, and you're just like, I might check out that movie. As far as a movie goes, and the acting and the way it looks, all that good stuff, yeah, it's great. This is one of those ones where, with it being one of my favorite books, it's kind of hard to. It's kind of like the Needful Things movie, right? Like it's kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, I really love that book, and then the movie's just not going to deliver, because it's not even just the story. Because I mean, I feel like the movie delivers you the story, but it's like the picture that gets painted in your mind isn't ever going to be the same as the one that some director's vision that gets put on the screen. They just will never line up, and so sometimes that's why I don't watch some of the movies. Stephen King, some of the older ones, I'm getting more into them as they are coming out now, but I've I feel like the books, like I love the picture that I get in my head, from reading these stories, and I just want to keep them, you know.
Yeah, and I think the problem with both films is that they change the main character so much. It's,
Very
uh,
true. So I
but
know
yeah,
I had read some review about the movie after having watched the movie, and it's sort of in line with you, where they're like, they didn't hit the mark. It's trying to do the book, but it doesn't, have the guts to stick the ending. And then maybe we'll get another Running Man in 2050. Yeah.
maybe. All right. So for everyone out there listening, do you want to go ahead and give your socials, Chris, before I hit this outro?
Sure. So if you're looking to get in contact with me on Facebook, it's Christopher Clawson, and my Insta is Chris_Clawson82.
And for me, Instagram and Facebook, Christopher.R.Patton. On Twitter, it's Chris.R.Patton. And check us out at Boink Studios. Check out all the great shows we have. Check out the Patton Report. Check out 6M, Ray Sports and Slams. There's tons. We have a show pretty much every day of the week for you guys. So make sure to check out Boink Studios, Instagram, Facebook, and, listen to us on YouTube, subscribe, Spotify, all that crap. And so that was The Running Man, Bachman's vision of a world where the rich watch the poor bleed for primetime ratings and call it entertainment. A world that feels less like science fiction and more like a funhouse mirror reflection of our own. Down here in the basement, we've heard ghost stories, killers, cursed machines, and infinite voids. But this one hits differently because this nightmare isn't supernatural. There's no portal, no monsters, no ancient evil, just people, just systems, just hunger, just injustice sharpened into a weapon and pointed back at the very people trapped under it. Bachman knew something that still rings true. If you squeeze people long enough and they don't break, they run. And sometimes they run straight through the front door of the machine that tried to grind them down. So until next time, keep your head low, your eyes open, and your feet moving. This is Bachman's Basement, signing off from the smog, choked streets, somewhere on the run.